Everyone, apologies for being late. Our closed session took a little more time. And I'm going to hand it over to the chancellor because we have a study session. Our regular, the business of the governing board will start at 7 o'clock, but from 6:12 to 7 o'clock, we will have our wonderful guests. So Chancellor, please take over and do the introductions.
All right, very good. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be a part of this with you all tonight. We're doing a study session for the board and, of course, whoever else might be joining. And today we have Dr. Lijuan Zhai. She is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Ed Services and Institutional Effectiveness at Riverside Community College District. Thank you for being here, and we are really happy to have you. Dr. Zhai oversees institutional research, institutional effectiveness, enrollment management, MIS, state reporting and strategic planning, accreditation, and so forth. And she has extensive, a 20-year experience in this work. Her doctorate is from The Ohio State University with an emphasis in research and statistics. And her work involves dealing with data and integrity, effectiveness and transparency and accountability. And as we are wont to do in our study sessions, we invite experts to come and share with us information that they have and to use the data for our district. So this is the second of our study sessions. The last one you'll recall was with CM Brambent, and he talked with us about finances. So Dr. Zhai is going to have a set of slides, which the trustees and other people have had available to them. She's going to go through her slides. We're going to ask for folks to hold their questions until closer to the end, especially since we're getting started just a little bit late. Isha Jameson, Ms. Jameson will be sharing the screen so we can go through the slides for you without any problems. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Zhai.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
And let me know when you're ready for me to share the screen.
Okay. Can you start to share the screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Walter, and colleagues, community members, and guests. My name is Lijuan, like Dr. Walter already introduced. I'm currently working for Riverside Community College District. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some data here with you and some insight tonight. So tonight I'm going to present you some data to assess possible impact of COVID-19 on Peralta CCD enrollment and success. Okay, since there are lots of data to present, I will try my best to go over as quickly as possible to leave some time for questions and discussions. Next. My presentation will focus on the impact of COVID-19 on higher education in general. And then the second is the impact of COVID-19 on Peralta CCD enrollment, FTES. And then the third would be impact on COVID-19 on Peralta CCD retention and success. And I'm going to do a summary of our data, and also going to provide you some preliminary recommendations. Okay, I will present a lot of data. Some data are to compare fall 19 to fall 20, which is the prior and after COVID. And some data I went back 5 years from fall 16 to fall 20. Just want to have a more clear picture of trends at the district. Data source I use for this presentation are from a Peralta CCD internal data dashboard, which was published online at your website. I also use the State Chancellor's Office Data Mart for the success and retention. Okay, the outbreak of the COVID has become a major disruption to the colleges and universities across the country. with the most institutions canceling in-person classes and moved everything online. And the pandemic really significantly altered almost every aspect of college life, from admissions to the enrollment, to student service, to athletics. There are all kinds of concerns raised, including the quality of instruction. Are we still providing the same quality of education if we move everything online? And also enrollment declines. I'm sure you experience enrollment declines. Same with our district. It's all over the country. Every institution almost experienced declines in enrollment, and also unexpected cost. For moving everything online, the technology cost, and reimburse to students, for the parking and for cleaning cost, all kinds of unexpected cost. And also due to the pandemic, also uncertainty about budgeting and the impact on the economy. So we are not sure about our state funding from the state. How is that going to look? And several other states already reduced the funding for higher education. And same with student support services. Are we going to offer exactly the same thing if we move everything online? And also declining in the international student enrollment. We all lost a lot of international student enrollment at all institutions due to the pandemic. Next. Okay, next I'm going to share some of the data on Peralta enrollment and FTES. So this chart shows the resident FTES. On the top is the district data for 5 fall semesters. And the bottom is FTES as trained by college. We only focus on fall semesters for this presentation. FTES is the full-time equivalent of students, which we report to the state to receive the state apportionment. The higher FTES means more resources from the state. So even this presentation focuses on possible impact of COVID. However, when I saw the big declines in the FTES and enrollment from fall 19 to fall 20, I went back 5 years to see if the declines happened prior to COVID-19. So as you can see from the charts, the biggest decline happened from fall 19 to fall 20. And the top chart shows the FTES, resident FTES declined by 17% district-wide. And the bottom chart shows the college FTES trends. The blue bars are Alameda College, orange bars are Berkeley City, gray ones are Laney, and the light orange is Merritt. As you can see, the FTES declined by nearly 13% for Alameda, 3% for Berkeley, 25% for Laney, and 19.5% for Merritt. So the FTES enrollment decline happened prior to COVID. And from fall 16 to fall 20, the 5-year decline was about 25% district-wide, 25% for Alameda, 19% for Berkeley, and 31% for Laney, and 22% for Merritt. So all declining for the last 5 years, and it happened prior to COVID-19. Next. Okay, this chart showing the non-resident FTES trend, which is FTES when earned from students out of state and international students. These FTES also represent resources. It's also declining, and the biggest decline happened from fall 19 to fall 20. And district-wide and non-resident FTES declined by 16%. And for the colleges, the decline of 16% of Alameda, 20% of Berkeley, 21% of Laney. However, the non-resident FTES increased by 11% for Merritt. When looking by the 5 years, the non-resident FTEs declined for the district is 39%, big decline. And 35 for Alameda, 48% for Berkeley, and 36% for Laney, and 23% for Merritt. So big declining in the non-resident FTEs too. Next. This slide shows the number of cross sections offered at the district and by college for the last 4 semesters. So top is the district data and the bottom is the college data, all showing declining in the cross offerings. So the decline from fall 19 to 20, which is prior and after COVID, are about 13% for district-wide, 5.5% for Alameda, 10% for Berkeley, 17% for Laney, and 13% for Merritt. And for the 5-year, all declined for district-wide and also for the colleges. So due to the declines in the enrollment, so you have to cut the course offerings because you lost the students. But once you cut the course offerings, you reduce access to courses and the programs, may negatively impact the student completion. Next. Okay, so this slide shows the enrollment trend of unduplicated student headcount at the district and the college for the last 4 semesters. And the declines from fall 19 to fall 20, which is prior and after COVID, about 13% for the district, 2% for Alameda, and actually an increase of 6% for Berkeley, and 10% decline for Laney, and 11% decline for Merritt. The head enrollment enrollment decline also happened prior to COVID. And 5-year decline by district is 19%, and 10% for Alameda, and 7% of Berkeley, 13% for Laney, 8% for Merritt. So student headcount also declined. Next. Okay, when you see the enrollment declines, it is important to disaggregate data by demographics to see what groups are impacted the most, and also to see if there's a disproportionate impact or equity gaps. So the next few slides, I will show the headcount data by demographics. Due to the limitation of the time for doing this presentation, so I will only focus on the district-wide data. But however, it's important to disaggregate the college data by demographics too. This slide shows district-wide headcount enrollment by gender. And from the left to right, the bars in different colors represent different fall semesters from fall 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And you can clearly see the declining trend, both males and females. And another declining happened like every year. And the bottom chart shows 5-year declining and 2-year decline, by which I highlighted in red. It seems like the drop in the enrollment is worse in the males, which is 18% decline versus females 10%, which this may show a bigger impact of COVID on male enrollment. If we look at the 5-year decline, and also we lost more males, nearly 27%. Next. Okay, this slide shows headcount enrollment disaggregated by age. Okay, the same data, one cluster of bars represent one age group, and the bars in different colors represent different fall semesters. So data shows not all the age groups experience enrollment declines. The age groups experience enrollment growth actually are younger students. Those under 16 and age 16 to 18. These students, they could be during enrollment or concurrently enrolled high school students. So you have a growth in this area. However, rest of the age groups are all experiencing enrollment declines. It seems like COVID may impact more on older students and those age 55 or older. But it should also be noted that declines for most of the age groups happened for the past 5 years. It's not only like right after the COVID. Next. This slide shows a head count data disaggregated by ethnicity. So we're comparing enrollment from fall 19 to 20. It seems like COVID had a different impact on different groups. So all the groups experiencing enrollment declines, especially race, ethnicity, I know which declined by 26%. African-American students too declined by 19%. Hispanics declined 14%, Asians 14%. It should also be noted that we have been losing African-American students every year in the past 5 years. And by fall 2020, we lost 32%. So nearly a third of African-American students, which is really alarming. We are also losing on Asians, Hispanics, white students. These groups are our biggest ethnic groups of our students. Next. This slide shows headcount data disaggregated by socioeconomic status, including BOG, Pell Grant, low income, first generation. And from the data, you can see the enrollment declines and how vulnerable are our low income, low socioeconomic status students. And the declines of enrollment in the last 2 years prior to and after COVID, about 21% for BOG recipients, and 33% for Pell students, and 21% for low income, and 14% for first generation students. And then if you look at the declines for the 5 years, and even more worrisome. Next. This slide shows headcount data disaggregated by different special programs. ESPS, EOPS, foster youth, veterans, UMOJA. And I would exclude the dual enrollment because maybe there's something wrong with the data. I got this from the dashboard, so I would ignore dual enrollment. And the decline of enrollment in the past 2 years, about 37% for our DSPS students, 33% for EOPS students, 20% for foster youth, 32% for veterans. And then if you look at the back 5 years, even like more declines. But the one positive aspect that I would like to point out is the UMOJA program, which served more students in the past 2 years and seems like a very promising program. Maybe should scale up the UMOJA program. Next. When you're looking at the enrollment declines, it is very important to look at if there are equity gaps or disproportionate impact among different groups. So to identify equity gaps or disproportionate impact, that's a method recommended by the State Chancellor's Office. It's a proportionality index method. So we call it the PR method. Okay, PR method compares the percent of different groups in the outcome subcohort versus a percent of different groups in the original cohort or in the student population. So in a perfect world, the PR values equal to 1, means that's a perfect match of different groups in the outcome cohort versus its original cohort, supposed to be a perfect match. So PR value of 0.9 has been used as a cutoff point for identifying equity gaps or disproportionate impact by the state. So PR value equal or less than 0.9 indicates an equity gap or disproportionate impact. And we flag it with a red box. So for next few slides, we will examine if there are any equity gaps in Peralta CCD enrollment declines. And we will look at the equity gaps for both 5 years and 2 years. Next. Okay, this slide shows headcount enrollment and the percent of declines of different groups in fall 16, 19, and 20. So can compute declines for 5 years and 2 years. Last two columns are PR values for 5 years and the PR values for 2 years. And any PR value 0.9 or lower is in the red box. It means equity gaps in the enrollment declines. Data show that no equity gaps in terms of gender. However, we should watch closely on the declines in male students because the PR value for the 5 years is 0.91, which is very close to 0.9 cutoff point. So that could be a possible equity gap. In terms of age groups, there's an equity gap for enrollment declines of older students, those 55 and older. We should also watch closely on the possible equity gaps for 2 other age groups, 19 to 24 and 25 to 29. These are our PI values very close to 0.9. We need to watch carefully. Next. Okay, this slide shows headcount enrollment disaggregated by ethnicity, SES, and the special programs. And the same as the last slide, PR values are computed for 5 years and 2 years, and the red means equity gaps. So we were looking at enrollment declines from fall 19 to fall 20. Data show there were equity gaps in enrollment declines for ethnicity unknown group, Pell students, DSPS, UPS, and the veterans. And I would also watch closely on the enrollment declines of African-American students, BOG students, low income, foster youth, because their PR value is very close to 0.9. So may indicate the possible equity gaps. When you're looking at the enrollment declines from fall 16 to fall 20, which is 5 years, and data show there are more equity gaps. There are equity gaps for American Indians, African Americans, Pacific Islanders, ethnicity unknown, BOG students, Pell students, low income, DSPS, EUPS, veterans students, there are equity gaps. Next. Next 2 slides are our college data, enrollment decline equity data, only computed for 2 years, fall 19 and fall 20. And the PR values are red are the ones below 0.9. So left hand side is Alameda data and the red is the Berkeley data. So for Alameda, there are equity gaps in the enrollment declines for older students. I think I have a typo there. It's supposed to be 35 to 54. And a typo I put 25. Apologize for that. So for older students, there were equity gaps. As well as a student under 16, there was a decline. There was an equity gap. And also ethnicity unknown, Pell students, DSPS, EUPS, foster youth, and the veterans. So for Berkeley, remember Berkeley actually, City College had a headcount increase by 6% in fall 20. However, not all demographic groups had enrollment growth. Actually, there are enrollment declines for some groups. And the equity gaps were identified for enrollment declines for older students, Pell students, DSPS, EUPS, and the veteran students. Okay, next. On this page displays the data for Laney and Merritt. So for Laney, There are equity gaps in the enrollment declines for students, older students too, 35 to 54, 55 to 64, and 65 plus. Also for American Indian, but it's really small sample size, so I wouldn't worry too much. Ethnicity unknown, Pell students, DSPS, EUPS, and veterans. So for Merritt, the equity gaps were identified for enrollment declines for older students, 55 older, American Indian, ethnicity unknown, Pell students, DSPS, EUPS, and foster youth. I would also suggest to watch closely for African American students because PR value is 0.93 for both colleges. I would watch them carefully. Next. Okay, so we have started looking at a lot of data on enrollment. Next, I'm going to focus on the impact of COVID on student retention and success. And here we will focus on cross retention and success, which are important indicators for student success. Retention rate is a percent of students who stayed in the class till census. And the success rate is a percent of students who are successfully completing the courses, means they're receiving passing grades. Data source for this section is the data mart, Chancellor's Office data mart, which was reported by the district. So top chart shows the retention rate for the past four semesters, and the bottom shows the course success rate. As you can see the chart that both the retention rate and the success rate are actually showing positive trends for the past 5 years. And from fall 16 to 20, retention rate actually increased by 2%. Success rate actually increased by 5%. I think to me, this is a lot. And this is good news, and this is something you should celebrate. Next one. This is the same data, but only looking at 2 semesters for 19 and for 20, since success and retention rate, showing positive trend. So it doesn't seem like to be an area of concern. So for this section, I only focused on most of two years prior to and after the COVID, which is for 19 and for 20. Next. Okay, these 2 charts display retention rates, which is the top chart, and the success rate, bottom chart by college. When we compare 19 to 420, which is 2 charts side by side, and you can see clearly that the retention rate increased for all the colleges except Merritt, which had a slight 0.5% decrease, and the success rate increased for all the colleges. Positive trend. Next, please. Okay, next few slides, we will disaggregate retention and success data by demographics and by college. This slide shows retention and success rate by gender district-wide. Top is the retention, bottom is the success, and both charts show positive trends in retention and success for males and females. Next. This chart shows retention and success by gender at Alameda, and the top of the retention and bottom is success. And you can see both charts shows positive trends in retention and success for males and females. Next. This is Berkeley City data. So both charts showing the same trend, positive for retention and success for the males and females. Next. This is a Laney data. Same thing, both charts shows positive trends in retention and success for the males and females. Next. This is Merritt data. The top chart, showed a slight decline in retention rate for females and males. However, Data show positive trends in success for males and females, which is the bottom chart. Next. Next, a few slides will show disaggregated retention and success data by ethnicity. This chart shows the retention data by ethnic groups district-wide. Data show positive trends for all ethnic groups, especially American Indian. However, it should be noted African Americans had a relatively low retention rate than the rest of other groups. Next. This chart shows the success data by ethnic groups for district-wide. As you can see, the positive trends for all ethnic groups except American Indian, which had a decrease almost 5%. Success rate of American Indians are the lowest of all the groups, but they are small group, small student population. It should be noted here that African Americans had a relatively low success rate. Okay, next. This is the success and the retention rate by ethnicity at Alameda. So you can see the positive data showed positive trend in retention rate for all the ethnic groups, except the American Indian. And this is a very small group, so I'm not going to worry too much. And in terms of success rate, African American students and Hispanics actually had a relatively low success rate. So we need to watch. Next. This is the data for Berkeley City. Data show positive trends, increases in retention and success for all the ethnic groups. In terms of success rate, African Americans and Hispanics had improved almost by 9% and 7% respectively from 19 to 20. However, success rate of African Americans is still relatively low. Next. This is a Laney College data. Top chart is showed there were slight decreases in retention rate for African Americans, Hispanics, multiracial, and Pacific Islanders. However, data showed a positive trend in a success for most of the ethnic groups. It should be noted here that African American students' success rate are still relatively low than other groups. Next. This is the Merritt data. Top chart shows there was slight decrease in retention rate for African American students, American Indian, Hispanic, Pacific Islanders, and a race and ethnicity unknown group. In terms of success rate, there were decreases for African Americans, American Indian, Hispanics, multiracial, Pacific Islanders. And it should be noted here, again, African American student success rate are relatively low when compared with other groups. Next. Okay, next two slides shows the retention and success rate by delivery mode. The distance education versus non-distance education for fall 19 and fall 20. Of course, fall 20, everything is remotely. And the retention rate was on the left and the success rate was on the right. They are displayed in the same chart. Top chart is the Alameda data and the bottom chart is Berkeley City data. So you can see positive trends from fall 19 to fall 20 for both retention rate and success rate for both colleges. It should be noted that non-DE classes had actually relatively higher retention rate and success rate than DE classes. Next. This slide shows retention and success by delivery mode for Laney and Merritt. So same trend, positive trend for both retention and success rate for Laney. And for Merritt, the data showed a positive trend from fall 19 to 20 for success rate. However, retention rate was slightly lower for fall 20. Okay, next. Next two slides showing aggregated data by top code. And this table shows enrollment data by discipline, which I used the 2-digit top code, which is broader categories. And the enrollment data are displayed for fall 16, 19, and 20. So compute a 5-year decline and a 2-year decline. The enrollment change and the percent of change are computed and highlighted in red if it's a decline, and the green if it is an increase. As you can see in the last 4 columns, most of the data displayed are highlighted in red, means they are declining almost across the board. And disciplines that experience more declines due to COVID are education, engineering and industry technologies, fine and applied arts, humanities, interdisciplinary studies, math, and the social sciences. Next. Okay, this is the success rate. This data shows a retention and success rate by discipline. And in general, data showed positive trend in both retention and success rate for almost most of the disciplines. So this is good news. Okay, next few slides are the summary of the findings. And COVID-19 had a negative impact on student enrollment at FPS at almost all the colleges, but some positive things at Berkeley City. And the enrollment at Peralta Community College has been declining for the past 5 years, which is concerning because it ties closely with the state funding. And when comparing enrollment data from fall 20 to 19, the enrollment decline were observed for all status, experience a bigger enrollment declines due to COVID. In terms of special student populations, data show that enrollment has declined by over 30% for DSPS, EOPS, and veteran students. Next. Proportionality methods used to identify possible equity gaps. Data confirm that the students who were impacted disproportionately by enrollment declines were the older students, Pell Grant recipients, DSPS, EOPS, and veterans. Over the past 5 years, there were equity gaps for enrollment declines among American Indian, African American, and Pacific Islanders, as well as students with low socioeconomic status. Data were also disaggregated by top code to examine possible declines, the impact of COVID-19, and we can see almost all disciplines experience enrollment declines. And I'm not going to read the disciplines experience some big declines. The course success rate and the retention rate were analyzed, and the results showed positive trends across the district. However, success rate of African Americans and American Indians remained relatively low for the past 5 years. Okay, next. Okay, in the next few slides, I'm going to make some preliminary recommendations. I would like to remind you that I'm not working for the district, so I'm an external person. So I can only make recommendations based on the data, limited data, and also based on my past and current experience. So there are limitations on those recommendations because there are lots of things and the context of the issues I do not know as an outsider. So I would suggest the district looking at more data inside and outside of district, and to have a conversation and dialogues with stakeholders, and to do more studies, more analysis in qualitative and quantitative. It really takes the entire district to effectively manage enrollment, to grow the enrollment too. Okay, I first, next, yeah, this is the one. Okay, yeah, this is the one. All right. Next, I would like to share some of the principles of enrollment management enrollment management at community colleges. I would like to highlight, a district, it's really a collaborative process in district office working with the colleges. So you set you set up the overall parameters for the enrollment management, but it's the college decision. The college decision, to offer classes, programs, services, and it's a college decision. And the second one I would like to emphasize is our enrollment management need to be student academic needs, should drive our enrollment management. Our academic need to meet our student academic need. And the third, enrollment management need to be student-centered, should be based on the principle of providing student access and the success. So that's the principles of enrollment management. Next. So I'm going to offer some of the few recommendations for the district. I think the first one, I would like to recommend you to develop a strategic enrollment management plan for the whole district. Really looking at the SWOT analysis, doing like a strength, weakness, opportunity, and a threat analysis. Looking at the environmental scan data, internal and external data, to have some tough conversations about the programs and the courses. And the second recommendation would be, I recommend you to form a district-wide enrollment management committee, which is the EMC. And I would suggest to include faculty, of course, and deans of instruction, vice president of instruction, and the vice president of business, and the vice chancellor of business, and the vice chancellor of academic affairs, and the institutional researchers. And I think the chart should focus on FDS target allocations and monitoring enrollment versus enrollment target, and coordinating on marketing outreach effort in the district-wide. So you can also share best practice of enrollment management and doing enrollment planning district-wide. And the third one is enrollment management needs to be data-driven. You need to have comprehensive enrollment reporting, daily enrollment, FDS data versus the target, and enrollment trend by disciplines, by programs. You should also look at the efficiency, looking at FDS per FDEF. And also another recommendation to coordinate the marketing on the outreach effort district-wide, so you can improve the efficiency of using the marketing resources. And you really have to invest into the marketing outreach, but the coordinating district-wide could make it more efficient. And also, really looking at new programs and curriculum, really targeting high demand and high paying jobs. You look at the job market in the community, and you create programs to conserve the community. Other areas to grow, you can take a look is distance education's growth in the past. The distance education always fail very fast. So when pandemic is over, maybe you can grow more distance education. Another ones, the colleges and district grow a lot during enrollment. I know the district, this district grew a lot during enrollment in the past few years, but maybe more growth you can do. Another area, I would suggest you take a look, and my district is also looking at that, is growing your non-credit offerings to kind of offset the loss in the credit FDS. CDCP2, which is enhanced non-credit, where you can receive the same amount of money from the state. Those areas you can take a look. Another recommendation is advanced student access, equity, success through integrated student support, academic support, and guided pathways. I think it's very important that we create a positive learning experiences for our students. And looking at, I know there are lots of declines in our students, especially African-American students. I think we need to do more research in doing student surveys, doing focus groups, to really learn about their experiences and why they are dropping out from the college. And the other areas, for you to consider, I think it's related to institutional excellence, is looking at the program quality and doing the program review, and also looking at the program relevancy to see if our programs, services, activities are really benefiting our students. Are we serving our community? And also, looking at the organizational culture, our campus climate, the satisfaction, of our employees. And also looking at our processes, if our processes are efficient, are we creating barriers for our students? Other things to consider, looking at, these are from famous authors, are looking at our student experiences, their satisfaction, their academic development, career development, personal development, and the faculty and the staff satisfaction, professional development, interaction with the community, and how to acquire additional resources, and also, to looking at the organization health. Those are other things to consider. And okay, I think I'm done with the presentation. I hope we still have some time for questions and discussions.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Dr. Zhai. Are there any President Reese, what are your thoughts on 659?
659. First of all, I just want to thank you so much, because there were so many different parts of your data and your analysis of the data that I think could do and serve us incredibly well. I really like the fact that you were able to look at the 2016 to 2019 data and show us our decreases, but then also a sobering fact, the 2019 to 2020, which was incredibly sobering. And sometimes when we talk about this in the abstract, and then when we see the figures in the way that you have put them, it really strikes a different tone and a different tenor. The other thing that I thought was interesting was there was this kind of positive trend that was happening in terms of the retention rate and success rates, which was surprising to me, but I think that that's a testament to the kind of educational quality that's happening in our institution. So hooray to our faculty, our administration, our classified staff, everyone. But it also shows us that there are many different things that we have to pay attention to. And we've got to use this data to be able to look at the barriers, to look at those areas where we've got to organizationally and locally at the colleges really ensure that we are supporting that. I know that that wasn't the response to your question, Chancellor Walter. I know that. How are we in terms of people that would like to ask questions? Can we do maybe 5 to 7? That's not a lot of time at all. And my apologies for being late coming to the open session. But would people like to ask a few questions, at least in the 10-minute gap? Would that be okay? How are we feeling? I would need a, yes, Nikki.
First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. I'll make this very fast. The thing that jumped out at me was we have a lot of overall data. We don't really understand why we have the outcomes that we have. And in your presentation, among your very first recommendations is that you need a committee that is close to the ground, that you need a committee with deep consultation from the people who would understand what's going on. And I think that the challenge within Peralta has perpetually been that we don't have such engagement. Decisions are made from very high levels, almost never involve students, and rarely involve faculty members who are teaching these programs. And I think that that is a process that we do at our peril, and because we get this data, but then we don't understand it. We can see it, but we don't have a way of figuring out what to do differently. And in general, what we've been doing is trying to cut our way out of the declines simply by cutting more classes and boosting productivity, but it's a strategy without a real brain.
Trustee Withrow?
Good set of data. I'd appreciate it if I at least could get a copy of the presentation to have to study it. It's I have a printer, but it doesn't print in color. But one of the things that strikes me going through here is that career awareness is very important, and it's coming from various directions and whatever. And I don't think we do a very good job of that. That's all.
Is there anybody else in the queue? And to your point, Trustee Withrow, I think one of the interesting things was the top codes. When you looked at when you looked at the departments and when you looked at the top codes, being able to look at the trends and where the decreases were, because we have to have this data to be able to move. But what I think is also important, noting what Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen had said, is where do we go from here? What are our next steps? How do we kind of use some of this information as points of departure for discussion that allow us points of departure for action? Because we know that there's this trend, and we know that COVID has actually made that even worse for sure. But that is the reality. And now, how do we actually use this to be able to make productive decisions that is broad-based, that is collaborative, that is targeted? And
Good.
There are questions, and there's some guidance in the chat wanting to bring forward. And I think we were beginning to see this direction with the college presidents bringing information. So I think going forward, like for the next meeting, we can begin to talk about how this could be integrated into the plans, and we are working on strategic planning. And the other thing I would say, as we're sort of coming to where we are in time, is that, you know, forming a DEMC to help us, I think would be a really great recommendation to make to the groups as they stand right now. And I do know that that's something that's been raised, or an idea that's been circulated. So I think we're at the moment where we should do that as well. Yeah.
sounds great. Unfortunately, I believe we are at that time. If I don't have any more questions from our trustees or otherwise, I believe that.
I do have a question though.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll make it real quickly.
Of course.
This is, again, this data is not new to us. We've actually had a presentation on this before, and it's there on our dashboard for everyone to look at. As a trustee, this is information that I don't mind reading. That's my responsibility, but we're not operational. What I really want to hear is what the colleges are doing with this data and their enrollment plan, because that's where the ultimate responsibility comes from. We as board members don't direct. We don't do that enrollment at all. But so I'm surprised with this on the agenda. I look to see in the president's report, and we don't have a schedule for an update on enrollment management. So I would like to see that, so that we can support you in whatever way we can. But again, this is for the trustees to hear the information, but we can't direct or guide or make suggestions on this. We will follow your lead on your enrollment management plans. Thanks.
Yes, agreed, Trustee Handy. And one of the reasons why I had asked for the topic to be calendared is because when I was talking to Dr. Helen Benjamin, she wanted us to certainly do an analysis of COVID implications, where we are as a result of COVID, and to be able to look at that data between last year and this year so that we know where we are. The data was disaggregated, and the data was brought together, yes, because we can look at dashboards and we can look at the information, but making sense of it really does add many levels of complexity and understanding, because looking at data, it just ends up being data, numbers that really don't make sense unless they're placed into a narrative. So I think this is the beginning part of the conversation, as Chancellor Walter had said, and then the college presidents will bring it back to us in a manner that is local and localized. All right, I think that we are good and we are pressed for time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chai, for coming and being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Jones. Good to see you.
Luzon, good to see you again.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Trustee Withrow, did you have one last question that I wasn't able to get in? Are you good?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, fabulous. Your hand is still raised. All right, that does give us a lot to mull over, to reflect on. And again, thank you for bringing that to the board and bringing that to tonight's meeting. So let's call the meeting to order at 7:08. And President Donald Moore, actually, Academic Senate President Donald Moore, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance once the flag is up? I'm going directly into the agenda, obviously, as you can see.
If you insist,
Maisha, could you post our flag up, please? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Oh God, I forgot this.
To the republic for which
To a republic which stands
one nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, David.
Sorry for putting you on the spot there. Clearly it's been a while. Okay, thank you. And as per usual, I will start off and read the affirmation of the Statement of Cooperation to prepare the framework for our meeting tonight and at every meeting. Board Clerk, could you post that up too as well so everybody sees it? And just to remind individuals, I know it may seem a bit perfunctory, but we really are wanting to move it from being perfunctory to really being a part of our culture. So Maisha, if you're able to post that up, and then I will read it from
I'm
there.
reading it right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. The board is continuing to work on trust in and among our members. We agree to listen and seek to understand others and opposing viewpoints with the expectation of good intentions and a deep commitment to the district's students. We commit to being prepared for each meeting and to work within our established communication protocols when we seek additional information. And members will review the agenda in advance of each meeting and adhere to Board Policy 2340 for adding items to the agenda. We have reviewed the board's code of ethics and commit to reviewing it annually at our organizational meeting to remind ourselves of the behavior we are to exhibit and the guidelines we are to follow in our role. If the code of ethics is violated, we commit to follow the process stated in the code and will first address concerns informally to settle disagreements one-on-one between and among members before moving to the formal process. We agree that from time to time, the chair will remind members of appropriate behavior and may call for a recess or redirect members if they stray from the topic of discussion. We collectively recognize that it is within the duties and authority of the chair to render decisions or take actions to keep our meetings on track in adherence to board policy. We will strive to fulfill the vision as we established for ourselves, and we will model the behavior we want others to exhibit. Okay. And Vice President Gonzalez-Yuen, do we have a closed session readout?
Thank you. We do have a closed session readout. We had 2 public employee appointments. Both of these appointments were ratified and and passed on 7-0 votes with no abstentions. So the first was the ratification of the appointment of Tariq El-Jari as the acting dean of math, science, and applied technology at Laney College at a recommended salary of $124,655 annually, effective January 29, 2021 through April 30, 2021, or until the permanent position is filled. And that position reports to the Vice President of Instruction at Laney College. We also voted to approve the recommendation to appoint Chris Foster as the Dean of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at Merritt College at a recommended salary of $132,580 annually, effective February 24, 2021 through February 23, 2024. That position reports to the Vice President of Instruction. Both of these motions were made by myself and seconded by Trustee Withrow. And as I indicated, it was a unanimous vote with no abstentions. Let's see, we also approved the recommendation to not review the district office manager with employee number 108997775 motion. Trustee Withrow, seconded by Trustee Handy on a 7-0-0 vote. Also, we approved the recommendation to not renew the district office manager with employee number 108979996. Motion was made by Trustee Handy, seconded by President Napoli Abella Reese, and that vote was approved on a 7-0 vote with no abstentions. And that, Madam President, concludes the closed session readout for tonight.
Thank you, Vice President Gonzalez-Yuen. Let's move on to 3.6, which is the approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. And thank you, Trustee Jenkins. Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Student Trustee Uroni,
Yes.
Trustee Withrow,
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
Trustee Handy,
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla.
Yes, but I want to clarify through the president, that was 3.6
We need to go
approval
back
of the agenda.
No, that was actually 3.7. I'm going back to 3.6.
3.7.
Yeah.
I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen,
We are on approval of the agenda.
minutes.
I did it again. I jumped to 3.7 and missed 3.6. So we are at 3.7, approval of the minutes, and I will go back to 3.6.
Okay, and I'm presuming we can vote on approval of the minutes before the agenda, and if so, yes.
So,
President Reese.
yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 3.6, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who was that who seconded?
Trustee Bonilla.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Okay, Student Trustee Uroni.
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Withrow,
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
Trustee Handy,
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla,
Yes.
okay, Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen,
Yes.
and Trustee Reese.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. 3.8, Associated Students Report. Clerk, do we have any of our leadership available?
Just promoted Liam Zhu from BCC.
All right, hello. Good evening, President Reese, members of the board, Dr. Walter, and guests.
Good evening.
As reported at the previous board trustee board meeting, The Club Rush hosted by the Campus Life Office featured clubs from both BCC and our sister colleges. Attendance was marked at around 40 to 50 students on both days of the event. The first iteration of the open mic event saw lower attendance, however, was a very jovial experience for all parties involved. The students leading the Academic Affairs Commission also met with 2 representative professors from BCC, Linda McAllister and Chris Bernard, and are wrapping up the brainstorming phase. At the moment, we are searching for more students and staff to help with the formation and to be on the commission. Moving forward on the aspcc elections committee front, we're still looking for candidates to engage in the election for next year's Associate Students Administration. The committee is hopeful to gather more individuals with diverse backgrounds to ultimately keep the election respectable, equitable, and effective. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Liam. Maisha, do we have?
I don't see Lauren from COA at this point as far as student report out.
Okay, if you see her later, maybe we can bring her back in, but for now, we'll
let
go
you know.
to 3.9. Okay, 3.9, Peralta Classified Senate Report.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening, President Reese, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Walters, presidents, and guests. Tonight, we have 2 Classified Senate campus reports. The first report comes from the Laney College Classified Senate. The Black History Month virtual events focusing on mental health and healing continue this week. On Wednesday, February 24th at 12 noon, as part of the speaker series, Dr. Omar Harris Morehouse will be giving a workshop on mental rejuvenation. All virtual events are posted on the Laney's events page. The second report comes from the Berkeley City College Classified Senate. Attendance at the BCC Classified Senate has tripled since we have been working off campus and using Zoom. With the increase of classified staff working on committees such as professional development and guided pathways, etc., the issue of stipends versus overtime has come up. Lengthy discussions are going on surrounding this issue. And finally, many classified staff are still concerned about returning to campus and are looking forward to seeing a district and/or college plan on this matter. That is the end of the campus reports. Thank you very much for your support of the Peralta Classified Senate.
Thank you. Let's move on to 3.10, District Academic Senate Report.
Good evening, President Napoleon Billy Reese, members of the board, the chancellor, presidents, and guests. We're knee deep in our what is this, our fifth, I think roughly our 5th or 6th week, and we have a lot to do. And the graphics from this presentation was welcome. We've at the Academic Senate, the District Academic Senate, we've had discussions on enrollment with the Vice Chancellor. And at PBC even, we discussed it regarding our FTES and our target FTES and looking at productivity and what's the real productivity that's going on. So I think that diving in and really looking at how we could address these issues, particularly for our Black students and our Latinx students, I think would be really important on the basis of not just at our college, but at our actual departments and to look at how successful they are. I think that part of the concern that we have on the targeted cuts that have occurred is that the deans were just given what they had cut, and then they told the chairs how much to cut. And part of the difficulty with that is you really can't have the discussion about the nuances of this. While I understand that each of the colleges were doing the nuances, the effect of it hasn't been that way. And so we've been discussing what happens when students, when you have them on wait lists and you're at 32 and you can't take anymore, and you don't really want to because of educational necessity. What happens to those students? How do we capture those students? And it really ends up where those students leave the district itself. And so when you start to see these trends over a 5-year period, we really need to have a much more comprehensive plan in terms of capturing the students that we have than to let them go. In addition, how deliberately are we in terms of going for dual enrollment or non-credit? And to really have the discussion at the college level or again at the division levels within the college, and then ultimately in terms of our participatory governance at the district. I think we're all very concerned when your FTES is down to, estimated to be down to 12,900. That's not a very comfortable number. So my hope is that we'll do something. I'm looking forward to the fact that with our new upgraded system, students are going to be able to utilize their phones much more easier to navigate what they need to do in terms of signing up courses and so on. Right now, the faculty are being trained on how to utilize their faculty center and the other aspects of it, and that will continue to happen. As I understand it, the students are also being provided that. So hopefully we will be ready when students start signing up for summer and fall. And I hope that there is efforts to heavily market our summer and fall courses. So all in all, we're looking forward to the accreditation visit. I think each of the campuses have been gearing up for the accreditation visit, and we look forward to engaging. And I hope the colleges and the district are looking forward to the visit as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Vice President Gonzalez-Yuen, I am going to turn over 3.11 to you, public communication.
Thank you very much, President Napoli Bella-Reese. Tonight we just have one public speaker, and that is President Shanoski from the Peralta Federation of Teachers. She asked me, in light of the light public comment tonight, if she could have an additional couple minutes, and so I told her if she could fit it into 5 minutes, that would be fine, if there's no objection from our colleagues. President Shanoski.
Thank you so much. I actually added a little bit to my comments tonight in light of the presentation. So I didn't want to interrupt the flow then. So thank you for the additional bit of time. I'd like to start my comments tonight with a brief quote from last Sunday's New York Times. There was an article about the shifts in enrollment at higher ed institutions across the country. Elite institutions saw a pretty large increase in the applications for freshman students for the upcoming year, while other institutions saw some steep declines. And there is a small section on community colleges there that I think is just important for us to look at and consider when we're talking about these enrollment trends. So I'm going to begin the quote, and I'll tell you when I end the quote. And I'm happy to send the article to y'all if you're interested in reading it. Quote, even before the pandemic, Dr. Baldridge said, the rich were getting richer and the poor were getting more and more challenged in terms of institutions. The pattern of applications during the pandemic is just further evidence of a long-term trend, she said. The Common Apps data does not include community colleges because they typically allow anyone to enroll. But those schools which often provide low-income students a first step into higher education also saw steep declines. In the fall of 2020, freshman enrollment fell by more than 20%. We saw the largest declines by far among students from low-income high schools, high minority high schools, urban high schools, who ordinarily would have gone to community colleges this fall and who just vanished, said Doug Shapiro, the Vice President for Research at the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, which publishes educational reports, end quote. I thought that this was really important to read to y'all, to discuss, because I think it must be part of our consideration as we plan for next fall, especially when we consider our scheduling and the FTF allocations that are being made for by the district and going out to the colleges for scheduling and planning. And from tonight's presentation, I want to just highlight a couple of statements. One is the notion that student academic needs should be driving our enrollment management decisions, and that those decisions should be based on the principle of providing students as much access to the courses and programs we offer, not decreasing them, not diminishing them. I'd also like to echo the suggestion that we have a district enrollment management committee that includes faculty. Those faculty can support administration in making recommendations for FTEF and FTES targets, and often have a significant amount of historical data and recollection about what's happened in the past, including the fact that I believe we had a Dempsey and that it was rolled into another committee a couple of years ago. This idea of including faculty in the decisions about enrollment management would allow us to follow Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen's suggestion that the decisions aren't made from above and just, sent down to the colleges, but that we're all included in this and we're all invested in it together. If we really want to grow our colleges and provide support to our students next year, we must increase our offerings and decrease our class sizes. We must meet our students where they need us and not run away from that obligation. We talk about productivity a lot, and that was certainly in the presentation that we received tonight, but that cannot be the driving force and the only thing that makes decisions for us. Our productivity this year is right around 12.5. If what we do is allocate faculty for next year based on a productivity of 17.5, we will certainly make our colleges and our district smaller. It's inevitable, right? We're expecting it. I want to finish up by talking a little bit about our parcel tax. This was supposed to be on the agenda for tonight based on the board meeting sort of calendar that's posted. I didn't see it on the agenda tonight. It's possible that I missed it. I just want to point out again that parcel tax funds were authorized by our community to augment Fund 1 allocations. Parcel tax dollars were supposed to be in addition to the Fund 1 dollars that we use to provide an education for our students. I found out recently that while we have moved to a place where we're budgeting in that way, we're budgeting so that parcel tax dollars are being used in that way, it's not what we're actually doing in the end. I urge the board to ensure that our parcel tax funds are being used in the way that they were intended and not just budgeted for that appropriate use. We've been talking about this issue for far too long. And if there was ever a time where we need some augmented funding for our classes to try and grow our colleges and support our students, it's now. Finally, I'd like to again extend an invitation to all of you to join our intergroup dialogue discussions. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen was there, but there was really, a small number of administrators and trustees present. And if we're really going to have these discussions about power and the various dynamics associated with power within our district, we need all of you there. We need to do this work together in order for it to be meaningful. So you're not too late. You can join us this Friday. We'll be there at 1 o'clock and for the subsequent 2 Fridays. If you don't have the information, please reach out to me and I'm happy to share it. Thank you. I hope that wasn't too long. Did I get in under 5 minutes? No, sorry. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
President Reese, no more public comment.
Thank you. Let us move on to 3.12, the Chancellor's report. Chancellor Walter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I don't have very many comments tonight. We are foregoing President's reports tonight because we had the study session. So next time we're together, we'll have President's reports. And the only 2 points I want to raise this evening is to let everyone know, and by the way, hello, President Reese, Vice President Yuen, friends, others, colleagues on the dais, thank you for being here, community members. We have our accreditation site visit next week, and of course, we're talking about enrollment management. And so let me just say that we are spending our time right now in anticipation of providing the site visit team with what they need, evidentiary documents and so forth. We have meetings scheduled and we're looking forward to their visit. It is going to take a lot of our attention. And so we are preparing for that. And I want to thank all the people all over the district who are helping to ensure that we meet the occasion. We were given, yesterday, I believe, we were given information about what the team would be looking for. They're meeting with a variety of people, including our Board of Trustee members, myself, people from our cabinets, and so forth. So it is a comprehensive site visit and we're taking it very, very seriously. So once again, thank you for your efforts and please encourage everyone to realize, and I know we all realize, that this is a major aspect of what we do to serve students. The second point I want to go to is just really the issue around, it's not an issue, but the focus, the laser focus, the mantra of enrollment management. And I really do appreciate the comments of everyone who was talking about enrollment management. And we're moving strategically to address enrollment management, and it is not an individual, but it is a group effort. And when I say group, I mean everyone, from myself to Donald Moore to VC Brown to all of the individuals at the colleges, the presidents, because it can't be done by one person. So we're looking at every possible direction that we can. We're looking for ideas. We're looking for innovations. We're looking for ways that will, as if you don't mind me quoting you, Donald Moore, we're looking for things that are going to be impactful over the period of time right in front of us. Not that we are not going to be interested in incremental change, which lots of incremental change adds up to large change, but we're really in need of serious innovation and growth. And I want to amplify this call because it is only through managing our enrollment or whatever other mechanisms, whether we just, take everything out and dump it onto the table and say, let's rebuild this, or we add, or whatever it may be. Because if we don't do that, you know what the outcome is going to be. So it impacts our income, it impacts our ability to serve students, it impacts us across the board. So you'll be seeing this as something that we talk about all the time and put plans together strategically as well. And then finally, I will say we will definitely evaluate and look at and bring back the parcel tax information. And we are talking about that inside of the district in our governance meetings as well. So we're not going to shy away from that either. But I also want to thank everyone for their attention to the enrollment management and the importance that we're placing on it. As again, like I said, it's a village, as they say, that will move us away from where we are now to where we want to be. And I think it's important for us to realize or to say that individually we don't necessarily have the answers, but collectively we will have the answers. So that's really all that I want to add to the meeting tonight, and I'll turn it back over to you, President Reese.
Are at the consent calendar. Can I have a motion for the consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Okay, student trustee Yeroni,
Yes.
trustee Withrow,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Handy,
Yes.
trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
trustee Bonilla,
Yes.
trustee Gonzalez Yuen,
Yes.
and trustee Reese.
Yes.
Okay, the motion for approval of all consent calendar items has been passed.
Thank you.
Madam President, might I get a clarification? Did I miss roll call or did we not do it?
We didn't do it. Sorry, I put a note in the chat. I can do that. Are you ready?
Sure.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Student trustee Yeroni.
Yes. Present.
Okay. Trustee Withrow.
Here.
Trustee Jenkins.
Here.
Trustee Handy.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Here.
Trustee Bonilla.
Present.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuen.
I'm right here.
Okay. And trustee Reese.
Yes. Thank you for that. Let's move on to action items. 8.1, consider approval of a management personnel item.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Trustee Gonzalez Yuen, discussion? Okay.
Okay. Student trustee Yeroni.
Yes.
Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins.
Yes.
Trustee Handy.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla. Trustee
Yes.
Bonilla. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuen
Yes.
and trustee Reese.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Action item 8.2, consider approval of classified personnel items. Can I have a motion for that?
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Okay. No discussion. Roll call, please.
Okay, student trustee Yeroni.
Yes.
Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins.
Yes.
Trustee Handy.
I'm sorry, what is the number that we're doing?
8.2, Trustee Handy.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
8.2, consider approval of classified.
Okay, just 1 second. No, I don't have any questions, so yes is my answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuen
Yes.
and trustee Reese.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. We are at 8.3, Chancellor Search Timeline. Motion, please.
Move approval.
I'm sorry, through the chair.
Yes, yes.
8.3 is academic personnel retirement.
Something different.
I have 8.3 as proposed chancellor search timeline.
That's what I have as well.
Oh, maybe
Right.
I should refresh.
For a minute there, I thought I made the mistake because I have been making mistakes.
8.3 is the chancellor search.
I have 8.3 as the chancellor search timeline.
Okay.
Okay, now I have it. Sorry, I must have been, I don't know what happened. I'm looking at something older version.
Phew. All right. Chancellor search timeline. Let's continue with where we were. We have a motion. And then we have a second.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, who seconded?
I think that was Withrow.
Okay.
Phil, is that correct?
That's good. I was trying to, but I thought somebody did it just before me. But it doesn't matter. You put me down as a second, whatever.
All right.
Thank you both. Okay. Now let's have our discussion. Yes, Trustee Handy. And then Trustee
Okay,
Handy.
and looking at this,
Mhm.
I see that this is spread out to basically kind of start. It's basically this is spread out until June 1st or through June 7th, where our timeline done by the state chancellor's office was to at least start the search by the beginning of March. I have heard discussion by other trustees, but it's not been a board discussion of this deadline being moved. I've heard that a letter was given to the state chancellor on behalf of the board asking the deadline be moved, but we were not asked to participate in that, and I did not agree with that. So what I'm asking now is, did we get permission from the state chancellor to move the timeline?
Yes, and this must be mea culpa. This must be my apologies for that. I know that in a conversation that we had with AGB, one of the pressing issues was at that point we needed to find out whether the consultants can do both timelines because we didn't have an answer from Chancellor Oakley. So between that, when we were looking at and hearing the proposals of the consultants, and I believe a week and a half afterwards, I did get confirmation from Chancellor Oakley that he was fine with July 1st. And again, to go back to that particular moment, one of the reasons why we had done that was because from our conversations with the consultants, many said that a good, well done search process would take at least those number of months that we needed with an extension of July 1st. If we needed to, if Chancellor Oakley said no, we would have had to abide most definitively, but that would have been a rushed process. And with this being something that is so critical and so imperative, we wanted to make sure that that all voices were heard and that also we did it thoroughly and intentionally.
Well, this is my concern in this. We did a thorough search for the interim, and the board made a decision, but we had several viable candidates in a very short period of time. I can understand not making March 1st, but that's our fault because this process should have been started earlier. But there were trustees making statements early on that we were not going to do that date, that date was going to be changed. But not all board members were consulted or approved at that time. My concern is this: why, with an extension, should we not proceed and get the search done? Why are we waiting for the most important part to not happen to down the line to July? I mean, it doesn't take that long. They're not really starting the process. Look, it's at launch for the search process, application review, but the deadline is the 30th. So I think that it's been extended far more so than it needs to be.
So it started February 23rd in terms of the ad hoc committee of the board, the profile review, or it's starting February, actually, I'm sorry, it's starting a little bit earlier than that, my apologies, February 5. And it is certainly going on until what we have here at the very end, June 7th, but that's also allowing for a variety of different, first the number of months or the number of weeks that is necessary for the applications to be out there, but then also ensuring that there are forums, committee meetings. But I'm going to have Dr. McKinley, actually, I shouldn't be talking about this. Dr. McKinley, if you want to opine on this, that would be good.
Sure. So this allows us then to have the 4 to 6 weeks of actual applicant harvesting that the consultants have said they need in order to do a really thorough job. And of course, it could be done quicker, but this will allow us the time to do it really, really well, and to then surface the candidates that are most likely to be the ones that you will like and who would be successful. I mean, that's really that. And also then to ensure that we have plenty of times for all the constituent groups to give their input, and to later on follow up and do the proper site visits and those types of things that are really necessary to make sure that we are able to recruit a successful candidate who will be a long-term. Remember, I think one of the key things we've talked about, one key criterion is that the person we want is going to be someone we'd like to be here for a long time, at least 5 years. And in order to do that, having a thorough search, taking a little bit of extra time, is certainly worth it. So that's the reason for the extended timeline.
I just want to go on record saying that I think we should have started much earlier in this process, and this process is being drawn out. And I doubt that we'll be doing any visits other than virtual visits when it comes down to it, because we're not coming out of the situation quickly. But banking on getting a president or a chancellor or anyone who's going to stay for 5 years, to me, that's just, something that we say, but it's always going to be based on that person's life, family, living situation. It doesn't matter what we want. We need to identify a strong person, but that person will stay until that person is no longer there. And no amount of speculation is going to change that. That's true for everyone. We don't know who is looking to go somewhere else at this time. But, in terms of the committees and all of that, we did that before. And then choices were made. So it doesn't take that long to get a strong candidate, because there are many people who are not going to be willing to come to California under any circumstances, or don't want to take on a multi-campus district and all that. So whoever's available, that's going to happen soon enough. And I see searches going on all the time. So I really don't want to see this just stretched out for forever. And then people are saying, oh, then, well, it's destabilizing for the campus to change chancellors, where it's actually destabilizing for us to be with an interim for almost a year. So I'd like to see us get this going and try to and do what we can to get these campuses back on track. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Trustee Handy. And I'll just add, there were 2 other reasons too, I believe. One of the reasons was we wanted to abide by board policy for the chancellor search in terms of what needed to happen. And I believe that the other conversation that we did have was that we wanted to be with the academic deadline, or academic timeline rather. And if we try to recruit somebody for a March 30 or March 1st start, it was in the middle of the year, which made it kind of odd. So those were just peripheral other elements.
Yeah, and I've heard that, but so many people are out of jobs right now because of COVID. The middle of the year, the beginning of the year, we're all in a like a time zone that we can't get out of.
Right.
So to say that people are unavailable at a specific time, no, there are more people who have returned home, who've left their jobs or whatever at this time. So again, I just think we need to proceed as quickly as we can. And it seems like we've hired a very competent firm, and I don't want any board direction telling them to slow down. That's not a decision of the entire board.
Point taken. Yes. Trustee Bonilla, and then Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen. And Trustee Withrow, I'm not sure if your hand is raised or not because it hasn't been lowered. So no. So Trustee Bonilla and then Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
Okay, great, thank you. So in looking at the search timeline and looking at some of the activities that have already taken place, I just want to remind all who are in the leadership roles of moving this process forward, that this is a board search, right? This search that is taking place is the board search. The board owns the entire process, and any communication that goes out comes out on behalf of the board by the board president. That needs to be really clearly articulated, and it needs to be executed so that our board president is privy to communication that is going out via announcement, whether it's the listening sessions, and any other activity that is related specifically to this. The communication, again, is sent to the board president. The board president reviews as with part of the board leadership and opines on any of the information that goes out. So that's one. So that has to be, and that offers a level of transparency and integrity to the process, right? Because this is the board search. It's not HR search. It's not the chancellor search. It is the board, Peralta Board of Trustees search. That's key because we are hiring our CEO, our chancellor. Secondly, I think that the schedule looks fine, other than there should be much more details in terms of dates, especially when it comes to the interviews. There should either be, if this is the public viewing search timeline, that's great, but there should be an annotated internal timeline with dates already populated, already surveyed. The board should already be surveyed for what those anticipated candidate interview dates are going to be. We all have extremely busy schedules. We all need to get those dates in ASAP. So what I would ask is that if there isn't already a more annotated version of this, that one be developed, and that when we're looking at items that have perhaps already have taken place. So for instance, if the listening sessions have already been taken place, we should actually have those dates when they specifically took place and what the outcomes of those listening sessions were, how many attended. And that information should be very fluid and should always be shared with the board officers. So that's just a few things that I'm just adding to this draft for consideration. And that's it. That's all I'll share. Thank you.
And actually, if I may, Trustee Jolina, Trustee Bonilla, just because you're a pro at this, it seems to me that information should not just be shared with the board officers, but could we actually, in fact, share that information with the whole board?
Most definitely. Okay. Most definitely.
Good to know. Thank you. And Dr. McKinley and I will start meeting and maybe a little bit more frequently so that we are sure to update the whole board on these items. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
Thank you very much. And Trustee Bonilla, thank you for your comments. I think that was really helpful. I'm also mindful of Trustee Handy's concern about the length of the process. And I realize it's this challenge of trying to figure out how do you have enough inclusion and not get it dragged out? How do you hit within the academic calendar so that you're getting the right number of pools, but then begin making your offers in a window where other districts are making similar offers or beating other districts to an offer to get the candidate that you want. And so it's a real balancing act. With that in mind, Dr. McKinley, I have a question. Would it be possible to shorten this calendar by a week? And I'm thinking in particular because there's another issue here, and that is Peralta's academic calendar. So we're pushing into the official Peralta summer. And if we could shorten it by a week, I think we might be hitting please, those of you who are better familiar with the Peralta final schedule, we might be better hitting the window in which people are actually still officially here, so that faculty and staff members are doing it and students are doing it within the window in which we would normally expect that. I'm wondering whether it might be possible to shorten it by a week, maybe take a week out of the application review, and instead of do a 2-week window there, do a 1-week window. But if the dates have already been set and all of the participants have been apprised of those dates and agreed to them, well, it's hard to move that. On the other hand, if we're trying to do forums when people are around, et cetera, maybe a truncated schedule might be better. I don't want to monkey with it too much. I'm just raising the question. If it's like, no, this is written in semi-stone, be really hard to move, then I'm perfectly willing to vote on this, but I'm being mindful of the contents of the comments of my colleagues here. Dr. McKinley, via the chancellor, via the president.
So, one of the things that we really listened to with regard from the search consultants was the real need, what they believe to be the need to ensure that we had enough time to harvest, appropriate candidates, and then that there's enough time for the search committee to vet those candidates so they can produce a slate of really qualified, first-rate finalists. So the answer is we can certainly work to shorten it by a week, and I think that's a real possibility. However, I do want to make sure that, I've done a lot of searches myself over the last long time. And in my experience, if you're going to find a really good top-notch chief executive officer, you need to really approach it in a thoughtful and deliberate manner. And so, and in my experience, it takes 4 to 6 months to do one of these searches and do it well. And what we have here is something a little bit less than 6 months. It's actually about roughly 5 months. And so that's kind of right in the middle between that 4 and 6 month window. So
would it be possible to close the reading period from 14 to 7 days and save it there?
We could do that, and I think that I'll tell you what I'd like to do is talk with the search consultants and get their input on that. But the answer is yes, you can do that.
Then what I would like to do, if possible, is amend this motion to allow for the alternative, to empower the staff to make the determination that if it's possible to shorten the calendar by a week, to bring it within the academic calendar. And what Vice Chancellor Brown has posted in the chat is that the calendar ends the 28th. If we move it forward a week, I think we hit that. If that is impossible, empower the staff to move forward with the calendar as it is presented here, but ask them to make the best efforts to accommodate that schedule.
And if I may add, Vice President Gonzalez-Yuen, I would actually encourage Dr. McKinley, because there's also, for the selection committee meeting, you have 2 full days. We have a whole week put in there when we really need 2 full days, because I think we have to most certainly have the public forums by the end of the semester, just to be appropriate and just to be prudent. So that would mean a week, as Gonzalez-Yuen had said. So if we have our public forums by May 28th, then we don't have to deal with a calendar or a public forum that will not have the number of people or number of constituents that would otherwise be there if it were within the semester. I think that becomes a priority that we're going to have to navigate around. So thank you for bringing that up.
I think this was my motion. And so I would like to amend the motion to amend the calendar, but I can't remember who seconded. Was this in fact my motion?
Yes, and Trustee Withrow second.
Is that an acceptable amendment, Trustee Withrow? You're muted. Bill? You're still muted.
I'll accept the modification.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. McKinley and colleagues for your input.
Can you reread the motion, please? What's the amendment?
Okay, so the amendment is to accept the calendar with the direction to staff to, if possible, shorten the calendar by 1 week to bring it within the academic year, but to empower the staff to make that decision. And if that is not possible, to move forward with the calendar as it is published, but to make the best good faith effort to do that, to accommodate that. And what I'm hearing from staff is that that seems doable.
Okay, I don't want to change that amendment. I think that's fine, but I want some other considerations in there. I posted them in the chat. One is CCSF is also running their search for a chancellor. So can we ask Chancellor that you, I'm sorry, so board president,
Yes.
Can we get your direction to HR to make sure that we're apprised of their timeline so that we're either not in conflict? We know that there's the potential to garner a broader pool of candidates, and we don't want to short ourselves, right?
Absolutely. And I believe, in addition to that, Trustee Bonilla, I do believe that there are quite a number of chancellor openings out there, or superintendent openings out there. So we want to ensure that we are competitive and cognizant of all of the other timelines. And to circle back around to Vice President Gonzalez-Yuen's amendment, I would, unless you think that it's not possible, Dr. McKinley, again, I would urge as a priority that we do the public forums by the end of the semester. We cannot have them after the 28th of May. I'm sorry.
I think we can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously pay attention to internal calendars like graduation times, et cetera. I'm sure staff will pay attention to that. Thank you.
And the mechanism, the ways in which we bring this back to the board, Dr. McKinley and I will be having weekly meetings, and then I will send out a communique to the board as it relates to the information that I will be getting from Dr. McKinley. Thank you all. Okay, any more questions? Are we good? All right, Madam Board Secretary, if we could do a roll call, please.
Okay. Student Trustee Uroni?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk?
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Reese?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you for that. Let's move on to 8.4, which I have as consider approval of resolution number 20/21 for the 21-21 for the Education Protection Act funding and expenditures for fiscal year 2020-2021.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Bonilla. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Okay, Student Trustee Uroni?
Yes.
I did have a question.
Okay.
Moving too fast.
Yes, Trustee Handy.
Yeah, this particular one, it says that we're going to be using those funds to fund instructional salaries, but it also says that it's not intended for administrative salaries. So what is the intent of these funds, and why are we not using them for what they were normally intended for? I didn't glean that from my reading.
Chancellor, or through the Chancellor, to whomever can answer that.
I'm going to refer that question to IVC Ahmed.
Yes, I'm going to respond to your question. This is intended to use for instructionals, not for non-instructional expenses. It's only for instructionals. That's why we're bringing every year the APA to your attention. Is that enough, Trustee Handy?
Well, I was just, what I'm reading, I didn't see that it said instructional. That's why I was trying to find if it was a specific purpose. I kind of remember when we were doing these, when the voters were voting for that, but I'm not seeing what it was specifically intended for. It doesn't say that. And that's where I don't want to get into trouble. Oh, I'm sorry, now it just disappeared completely. Is there anyone else that sees something there that I'm missing? Does anyone else have any further information on what it said, what the specifically that tax was for? Because it says here, each local district has a sole authority to determine how the monies received from the EPA are spent, providing that the governing board makes these spending determinations in open sessions in a public meeting of the governing board. But it doesn't say what the taxpayers voted those funds for. I just need to know what the taxpayers said. If they said we were using it for salaries, if we were using it for students, that's what I just want to know. What did they say? It says everything that we must do, but it doesn't say what the money was intended for. It says that it's up to our discretion, but it would be up to our discretion within that category, within the guidelines that that it was written. And I'm not seeing that part.
Would it be best, Chancellor Walter, would it be to leave this until, bring it back to the next meeting, to table it to the next meeting? And at that particular point, we can come back with the very specific and precise information, either Chancellor Walter or Interim Chancellor Adil, Vice Chancellor Adil Ahmed. How do you two feel? Because I would rather we respond with material information rather than let this go unresponded to, not responded to. Where are we? Is there a timeline here? How do we feel? We need some response.
There is no timeline, President Reese, but this is for faculty instruction. We can change the verbiage. And if we don't do that, if it's not approved by the boards, it's going to be a funding. Because on 18-19, we had a funding because we brought to the board on July 1st, roughly mid-July, and it should be before June, because you are allowing the district to use that for faculty salary instructions. That's what the voter intended. And I will give you all the language next time if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, can we just move it? And move it, have that information, and then we can easily vote for it the next meeting.
That's, I think, Trustee Deanna, that sounds like, I feel like I am hearing that it is okay to table it to the next meeting, which is March, which is still before the June, July.
I have a quick clarification for Trustee Handy. Trustee Handy, can you articulate again what it is that you're asking for with regards to this funding? What exactly it's going towards?
Well, no, I see what we're putting it towards, but what I don't see, this was a tax. This is from taxes. So the taxpayers vote for money for specific uses for it. And I see that they pulled out some parts that said that it can't be used for administrative. It can't be used for, I picked those up, but it doesn't say what the language was. So we're just giving it over to instruction, but there might be other categories that it was eligible for too. And so if that was the case, I would like to weigh what those other categories are. And if we're making the best decision to put all that money into one area, or do we need to put it in other areas as well? But I don't have enough information to make the determination.
Maybe another piece of information that would be helpful, unless you wanted to add something else, Trustee Deanna Delphine Polk, would be when we've done this in the past, if anybody can recall, has it been for instruction? Because from what I'm seeing from the resolution, the only two places that it cannot be used is administrator salaries and benefits. So, which leads me to believe that all of the other areas are allowable. So maybe as a point of comparison, as I'm not really hearing too many responses, could you let me know if this has been used for the same allocation in the past?
Jennifer Shanowski put something in the chat.
Thank you. I am not seeing my chat.
Yeah, I can't switch over to follow the link.
I'm sorry, I don't think, it's not the part, this is the EPA. At the different, it's not the same as the parcel tax?
Yes, this isn't the parcel tax.
This is the education protection account that allows districts to receive these funds, $17 million. And it's not CARES money either. It's an EPA. The money goes directly to non-administrative instructional. It's a line item in our budget based on our tax receipts. But, I think it might be prudent to, come back. It's just adding a little bit more information for people so they can see what it is. So that's fine. We'll bring it back next time.
We can vote in the next meeting. That's fine.
Yes, just for your update, it's a sales tax that was implemented in 2012 when we had the financial crisis. It came from it generated from sales tax to help the community college, to sustain. And it ended in 2018. It was the Proposition 30. And then that was succeeded with Proposition 55 and will expire in 2030.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Vice Chancellor Delamed. Let's table that and we'll bring it back to the March 9 meeting.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, let's move on to 8.5. Consider authorization to adopt district-wide standards and authorize. Here, there needs to be a bit of a correction to the acting Vice Chancellor of DGS, because right now, as it reads, I believe on the board doc, it says VC of DGS, to implement and update district-wide building design and construction standards. Do I have a motion for this?
So moved.
Thank you. Trustee Withrow, second?
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Handy. Discussion, please.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a really complicated, technical, long document. It's over 100 pages of very detailed specifications about building and building standards. And although I will confess, I did not read every single word, as near as I could tell in my relatively fast perusal, out of the over 100 pages, there's one paragraph on sustainability standards. Now, maybe I missed it because there is a lot of stuff in here, but I'd like to ask Chancellor Walter, we no longer have a director of sustainability. For a long time, we had that position in DGS. That position went away with and I'm wondering, to what extent is staff paying attention to that? We've got a minimum standard that this board adopted over a decade ago for LEED Silver. That's quite old now. LEED Silver standards are quite old. Most, it seems like many, many buildings are being built all over the state as LEED Platinum, and they're very specific design standards. To what extent are we as a district paying attention to this critical area of our environmental footprint, our energy envelopes, our building materials, the sustainability of these materials, other than one paragraph that says everything will be designed minimum to silver to silver? Is this something that our staff, in fact, is really paying attention to? And if so, who's paying attention to that now that we don't have a director of sustainability in DGS? Through the president, Chancellor Walter.
Oh, thank you. So I would like to ask AVC Smith to speak to this, if she would, please.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Ewan and Chancellor Walter. I'm glad you asked, because we will be coming back to the board. We are doing a lot of work on our sustainability initiative. We are looking to establish a sustainability committee within our facilities committee, and we're working on it. We will come back with AECOM to do a complete, update, renovation of our sustainability initiatives. There's so much information that we are trying to input with the things that we haven't done and the things that we can be doing. We'd like to bring back and talk about the low-hanging fruit that we could implement for sustainability, and then also how these standards will relate to raising the bar for sustainability in our projects itself.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you very much for that response. Do you have a sense of your timeline on the establishment of that committee? Is this something that's like, yeah, we're working on it, it's going to happen before the semester, or it's like, it's in the hopper, we've got 1,000 other things, including COVID, to deal with, we'll get to it at some point, but there's no timeline?
Yes, there is a timeline. Actually, we'd like to come back before the end of the semester. I can't tell you exactly which board meeting, but we'll be back before the end of this semester with more information about sustainability.
That's extraordinary. Thank you. And I will just remind my colleagues and members of the public who probably have no awareness of this. This board adopted one of the most far-reaching environmental sustainability board policies about a decade ago. And probably time that we, really kind of tuned it up and brought it up to current standards. And so I'll just throw that out there to Donald Moore. I think that's your work. The Academic Senate's kind of moving policy along and like that. And thank you very much. That response is very heartening.
Thank you. Any other questions from our other trustees? Right. I see none, so let's do roll call, please.
Okay, student trustee Uroni.
Yes.
Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins.
Yes.
Trustee Handy.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes.
Trustee Bonilla.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuin.
Yes.
And Trustee Reese.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move on to 9.1, trustee reports. I'll go by tile. Trustee Handy. Caught you off guard. Wanted to make sure.
There's so many things that we're working on, but no, just pretty much the same things. Where there was an incredible celebration for Anita Black done by Merritt College last Friday, and I was able to participate on that and deliver your resolution again. And it was so incredible to see our retirees, people that I've known over the past 18 years, with Audrey Trotter coming in, and Chancellor Laguerre was on there, President Webb was on there. We couldn't see all the participants, but when you saw the names, I think there were 101 people at one time on that Zoom. And so, including Anita Black's mother and her sister. And I think that Peralta, really did a great job for her family and in celebrating her. And again, I continue to get off the block twice a week to go and work at Occur. And it's always wonderful to be out there with the public. Our food supply was cut down, but what is that? When our food when they said that our food supply was cut down, then miraculously more food would appear every week. And today, I think we had about 700 meals. So, and the people kept on coming. And then another organization came and joined us, and we looked up, and there were like 150 boxes of produce and milk and eggs being delivered. And we still were able to give it all away. So it's just a great community piece. There's so many things that are going on here in the East, and I'm glad that we can be a part of it. But again, it's also a great opportunity to be out there with our community and let them know that we're all here, and that we're all here for them, and they're here for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Andy. Trustee Withrow?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Trustee Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam President. So Alameda County and First 5 and the Alameda County Fatherhoods Corps are having Dad Discussions 3.0 this Thursday, February 25th. You can look on the internet for the link, but from 6 to 7:30, it's a time for dads to get together, discuss issues that are going on in the home, life, and just overall a brotherhood. It's also welcome for allies as well. And we'll have a guest speaker, Jody Campbell, from a professor from College of Alameda. So anybody that can join, I suggest you take the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Jenkins. Trustee Delphine Book?
I have nothing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bonilla?
Yes, I actually want to share and thank Ms. Altheria Smith for attending our webinar today, which was focused on improving the effectiveness of project labor agreements. It was done in partnership with the Port of Oakland, along with a whole host of other Alameda County public agencies and municipalities. And it included data, or as much data as it received, also from Peralta around capital improvement projects. And really the focus here is on racial and social justice around providing access and retention strategies to improve the diversity of the building and construction trades. And so it was a well-attended webinar today. And we have had probably over 100 participants, and we're moving into phase 2, which is an actionable plan. And I'm looking forward to Peralta being an active participant as we move this process forward. And that's it. I'll have more to share as we expand around jobs, job creation within Oakland and within the county. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Trustee Bonilla. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here for a quick second. I think a lot of you know that as a faculty member down at De Anza, I run a program called the California Campus Camp. And last week we had this fabulous forum with our former president from Berkeley City College, Rowena Tomaning, and Kelly Velasquez from ELAC down in Los Angeles, as well as the fabulous Amy Allison, really highlighting the role of women of color in building the new American majority. This coming week, we're featuring the Laney College journalism program, which is just such an extraordinary kind of regrowth in that program. And it's called Harnessing the Power of Journalism, Information, Free Speech, and Publicity as an Organizational Strategy. And it's featuring the editorial team from the Citizen and the journalism department chair, who is also the academic senate president at Laney College over there. So it's 4 to 6. And if you are interested, send me a note and I'll send you the registration form. I'm just so excited about the series and to have the opportunity to highlight the very best of civic engagement and community organizing work going on in the community colleges. And I'm really excited that we get to highlight the work at Peralta. The following week, we're featuring the Black Minds Matter group and the work around rethinking public safety. And so that's exciting. It's always exciting to get Peralta to brag a little bit about the excellence that goes on in this district. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez-Yuwen. And I would just say that we are heading into the visit, and our next meeting will be after the visit. So just wanted to give you all incredible gratitude. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be hard the next week, just because there's evidence that you all are, I know, trying to gather and put forth. But it's also exciting. It's exciting because this is an opportunity for every single one of you to show how amazing your colleges are, what's happening in the classrooms, what's happening in your colleges, as well as the district. And so just a thank you, and be there, be present, and continue the excitement, because there's a lot to be excited about. And let's move on to the announcements, 10.0.
All right, you caught me unawares. Could somebody say the pledge again for a second? I've got to pull up my email on the announcements. So somebody hum a few bars.
Want me to resend it?
Yeah, thank you. You sent that, and let's see, report out. I'm so sorry. Announcements, thank you. Here we go. So the district and colleges comprehensive accreditation ACCJC virtual site visits are scheduled for next week, March 1 through 4, as President Napoli Bellarice just said. Thank you so much to everybody who's been working hard to prepare our colleges and district for the visiting team. Enrollment is open for late start classes that begin in March, so it's not too late to pick up classes. And the next board meeting is on March 9th, 2021. I think that is it.
Thank you. And I am going to turn it over to Trustee Handy to close the meeting in memory of a past student trustee.
Hello, everyone. Last Wednesday, I got some devastating news that we lost our own Yvonne Thompson. Yvonne was our student trustee, and she was in the culinary arts department. She catered for the trustees, and especially attention to Bill Withrow, who just had a special place in her heart. She learned how to make everything gluten-free just for him. And she moved away from here at least 6 or 7 years ago. We, on a trip to the Congressional Black Caucus, her final trip there, she did not return with us. She went back home to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Yvonne was an amazing woman, an amazing student trustee. She would see the potential in students, and together we would just push those students. I actually, in the earlier days of the Congressional Black Caucus, we raised the money, and I would give Yvonne my credit card, and she was the airline whisperer. And up into the night we left, she would be changing our flights to get cheaper flights so that we can get as many students as possible to Washington. This woman was so dedicated to Peralta that as her husband was dying in the hospital and she was sitting there with him, she was creating the flyer for the Peralta delegation, which we called our students that travel. She took all of his clothing and dressed all of our male students, because we don't want one of our students to step foot in Washington and not be prepared. So we go to the Goodwill, we get their ties, we get their shirts. And every student is so grateful once they get there, because they really fit in. And she just outfit them. And then she would cook food for them while we were there in Washington. To this day, I'm still getting requests for recommendations for students who traveled with us to Washington, D.C. as many as 12 or 13 years ago. And Yvonne's legacy was that we continued to hand this on with other student trustees, would step up, Sharon Clegg and others, and help us again to raise money and take students to this incredible experience. So we called her Mabi. She was from her Rastafarian days. She has been a mother to many of our Oakland famous movie stars from Black Panther and all, who were also Peralta students. She was a phenomenal woman, and she will be greatly missed, but her legacy is stamped all over Peralta. We will miss her, but she gave us so much. And I'm just grateful to have had the opportunity to meet with her and work with her, and for her to help me to get the program institutionalized for our students to have that great experience working in our government. So thank you all for hearing this.
Thank you. What a wonderful way to adjourn. Okay. Presence and spirit and memory of Yvonne Thompson.
Mabi.
All right, all. Let us adjourn. Have an incredibly wonderful night. Remember all of our blessings and the spirit that continues to make this district go forward. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
You do.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.